All right. Well, hello and welcome to this episode of the Retail Is podcast. I'm your host, Joey Morgan, joined as always with my co-host, Callie Ross Seibert. And
Hello.
today we have Paul Atkinson, CEO of Eggleston. Paul, welcome. And first off, happy anniversary.
Well, thank you,
65 years
Joey.
in business, I think.
The organization has been around since 1955, so we're celebrating our 65th year.
Ooh,
Wow.
that's a long time.
I presume you haven't been there since the beginning, though.
I have not been there for the whole time, so
Really?
I'm only 32 years, so I'm right at about half. So
That's still a significant amount of time.
well, yeah, it's I've been very lucky to be able to be with an organization, help it grow, and be associated with such great people and a real strong management team. So we've made some great progress over that time.
Awesome. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what Eggleston does? I know that there's a whole bunch of different business operations that you guys have. Can you get into a little bit of that?
Sure. So the commonality of everything we do is about improving the lives of individuals with disabilities. And these are generally, we have our services to adults with disabilities, but we do a lot of very different types of business lines. We've been fortunate that for the last 30 years, we have done a significant amount of work with federal contracting. So we run two large commercial laundries, process about 8 million pounds of laundry. We go as far away as the FBI and DEA Academy up in Quantico. We go way into North Carolina to Camp Lejeune and some other customers we have down in North Carolina as far as the government. We serve every branch of the service with our laundry services. Really, at the end of the day, what does that really mean? It means jobs for about 80 individuals. So we're processing 7-8 million pounds of laundry a year. We do private hospitals, but the bulk of that work really is the federal work opportunities. And the beauty of that work is that it tends to be higher wages because it works under what's called the Service Contract Act, which is a federal requirements that we pay higher than what would be the state minimum wage. So a laundry worker, for example, is making approximately $11 an hour, but more importantly, they get $4.13 of each hour in benefits. So we're able to provide health insurance, some retirement money. So it really is a close to a living wage for people that are working in our laundry through the Ability One program. The other large business line that we're involved in with federal contracting is food service. So we do food service and we have since 1990 at Portsmouth Naval Hospital. We do the food service at the main galley of Nation at Naval Station Norfolk. We do the food service out at Oceana. And what does that mean at the end of the day? Jobs for about 60 or 70 individuals working in a food service environment, making a fair hourly wage, and more importantly, getting health benefits and a little bit of money for retirement and some of the other benefits that go along with working under a federal contract. So if we get out of the federal sector, our private entrepreneurial type activities have been what I would describe as social entrepreneurship. And social entrepreneurship, hard to say that, but it's early in the morning for it, I guess. But social entrepreneurship really is about being entrepreneurial, but also addressing a social mission. So the social mission is improving the lives of people with disabilities. And in that way, we're doing a commercial garden center. We have a whole document management, everything from going to businesses and picking up documents that need to be shredded. And then more importantly, we've started a document conversion business that we take records for businesses, digitize them, make available on the cloud. And with the way work is going right now, a lot of people wanting to work from home, maybe not so much going into the office type environment, we see that as a huge growth opportunity for us, so much that we acquired another business, a for-profit business that employs about 30 individuals that has been doing scanning work for about 20 years. So that's a business line we're in. Anything in the document management line, we really feel that is the way people are going to want to work moving forward, and we want to be part of that process. So if you call us, we'll come pick up the documents. We run a test box. We tell you how much it's going to cost, and then you get your records. Most people want to access them on the cloud, but we can also give you just a record for if you have documents you don't think you're going to want to access. You just want an archive record, and you don't want to pay the storage shed to store the records or keep them in your garage. You can keep them on a disk, and a couple disks, and you got all your records. So that's a line of business we're in. We also do fulfillment and refurbishment. So we have a contract with Cox Cable where we handle all of the East Coast of their refurbishment of remotes, couple different types of remotes. And then we also redo cords and cables for them. Everything from, the whole East Coast. So that in effect is keeping about 25 individuals busy, and very proud that about 7 of those individuals have come through what we call our Warrior Bridge program, which are veterans. And we really focus on serving veterans that are experiencing difficulty. So whether it's recently transitioned or have transitioned, maybe they've had a difficult time in the past in that transition from the military to private sector, and maybe have had some challenges, whether they're mental health or had a few problems with whether it's alcohol, substance abuse, whatever it is. We're willing to help them. We might be the employer of record, or we may help work with some of our partners out in the community where we place individuals. So that's another line of business for us. In addition to that, most people know us by our vehicle donation program. So every 2 weeks we have an auction. We do sell at auction donated cars. We'll sell about 100, between 75 and 100 cars every other Saturday. So in the past it was a live auction. Now we do a sealed bid. People come in and look at the cars for the Thursday, Friday, and early Saturday of every other week. They can leave a bid, and we call them early the next week and said, you got the car, you were the high bidder. So that's another business line we're involved in. So, but the glue that holds it all together really is our rehabilitation programs and supporting people with disabilities. So we run group homes. We provide residential services to people. So when people were told to go home and shelter in place, about 40 individuals were going home to one of our group homes. So we had to staff it and keep it going. And in addition to that, we place a lot of people out with host businesses. We have people that call us and say, we might have a job for somebody. And one of our, what we call employment specialists, will go out, talk to the business, see if we can either job carve or create, find the right person to do a good job match. The reality is somebody with a disability, and especially somebody with a fairly significant disability, one of their major barriers is transportation. So if we can get somebody to a job with public transportation, and maybe the work is close to a bus route, maybe they live close to the bus route, if we can work that out, those people are probably going to be long-term employees. Because once they figured out that transportation, they're not interested in job hopping, because it's so hard to figure out how are we going to get to and from work reliably. So I talked a lot, I know, but that's a very high level overview of some of the business lines that we're involved in. Didn't mention some of the other businesses. So we do a custom embroidery. We do some other work activities as well. But the primary work that we do is all focused around providing opportunities to people with disabilities that either want to work or need a structured program. So I like to look at, all of us need a routine. So people with disabilities need that routine, sense of purpose and structure to their life, and as well as the economic benefit. We have people that help their families just pay the rent and get through the day. We have in this pandemic, I'm proud to say, we have not laid off one individual.
That's amazing. We've
had to adjust people's schedule and do some different things, but we have not laid the first person off, and we literally have over 600 employees.
That's amazing.
I mean, to be proud of, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I have a future brother-in-law who's out in California, and he's legally blind, and he just graduated from college, a really smart kid, but his hardest thing right now is transportation. Every job is just 20, 30 minutes away, and it's just really struggling. So I keep telling him to come out here. We'll try to help him out somewhere on the East Coast.
Yeah, the challenge is, people need a safe place to live.
Mm-hmm.
You need a way to get around, and then you need activities and a purpose. And I think that's what all of us, the idea of having purpose. Many of our workers, we do a lot of laundry for hospitals.
Mm-hmm.
Hospitals don't run without laundry. Our laundry workers are very proud that, we're delivering laundry to Lake Taylor Hospital, to Portsmouth Naval Hospital, to the clinic at Langley, to hospitals down in North Carolina. And the reality is people with disabilities tend to live on the margins of society. So, what they say is, as society kind of gets the cold, people with disabilities get pneumonia. So because they really are, maybe haven't developed the ability to, net worth. And, right now, the statistics are that probably 1 in 5 individuals will have a disability at some time during their life. So it's fairly pervasive. The other thing is when you talk about people with disabilities, they're 7 times more likely to be abused.
Mm-hmm.
And I really worry about the sense of loneliness and social isolation.
Yeah.
Society has kind of treated and conditioned people with disabilities, especially people with intellectual disabilities, to be huggers. Now, they didn't do anything different. Now we're saying, we're not hugging you, stay 6 feet away.
Mhm.
And matter of fact, maybe without good communication skills, we all pick up a lot of our communication through facial features and things of that nature. So we're going to be wearing a mask. We're going to ask them to wear a mask. And last year people wanted to hug you. Now, if you try to hug us, we're going to push you away and keep your 6 foot distance. So there's lots going on in the whole issue of, as you delve deeper, of the kind of life that people with significant disabilities are faced with.
Very true. This is, a bit personal to me too. My oldest sister has Down syndrome, and I've been talking to my parents about it, and she's been having real trouble with the no hugging things right now. But as you talked about earlier, she loves the work she does because she's in a similar program, but on the West Coast. And that's her favorite part of the day, is actually just having a job to go to. So she was struggling real bad with shutdown. Yeah,
purpose and structure in a routine is very important to people. Certainly important to me. I'm glad that somebody expects me to be somewhere at 8 o'clock on Monday morning.
Yeah.
So I had a question. I mean, there's all of these different, lines of the business, so different to each other.
Mm-hmm.
How were they decided upon, and where did it all start?
Well, it all started with a group of parents that children were not readily absorbed into the job market, and that was 1955. And we started as what was called Tidewater Vocational Center and traded as Tidewater Vocational Center until like 1979, when a woman, Louise Eggleston, in fact, gave us a building. So we were on Colley and 20th Street in Norfolk. We had moved up and down the street a bunch of times. Mrs. Eggleston said, I've got this building. We know you're trying to buy a building. It's a grocery store. It's going out of business. She had done a little volunteer work for us. And she said, you can have this building, when I pass away. And really during that 6-month period when we were renovating the building and she wasn't charging us anything, she was killed. So the board of directors chose to memorialize what Mrs. Eggleston's gift was, and we renamed the program after her. So I say, she helped kind of plant the seed. We have had to be good gardeners to grow the seed. Mm-hmm. And over that period of time, the building that Mrs. Eggleston gave us, I went to the bank and borrowed $1 million to renovate the building and create a laundry. That was 1990. And really one of the jumping off points was our involvement with federal contracts. So we kind of stepped it up a level. And then the rest of the business lines we've been involved in have really started through partnerships. So whether it's partnerships with, the Virginia Zoo, where we started a horticultural center, or a partnership with the Civitan Club of Norfolk, where we run a summer camp out in Chesapeake. Most of what we have done is through those established partnerships, and we take and we evaluate a business line. We've started business lines that haven't worked, but if you I think they pay you over $1 million if you bat just 300 in the major leagues. So you only have to get a hit once every 3 times to make lots of money.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't take a few chances, you're probably not doing the right thing. If you only are willing to do something when you're sure it's going to work. Over time, we've started things, but we try to involve the individuals we provide services to. We have a great board of directors. I have very talented staff. So it really is a collective look at potential business lines. And again, you have to have the right culture and be working with the right people, and then it's easy. Then it's going to work. So we have started businesses over time, and the reality is not everybody wants to do just one thing. If you only have one work opportunities, that's not a choice. One opportunity is very limited. You get 2 opportunities, it's kind of a dilemma. You have to have what I'd say is it's kind of the Baskin Robbins. We have a variety of different flavors. You get to go up there and pick which flavor that is going to work for you. And we've literally had people work for us over 45 years. And I can think of one woman, Hope, that works in our business services now, but she worked in our business services. She went to a food service operation and worked for a few years. She worked in a laundry for about 15 years. Hope was in her neighborhood riding an adult tricycle, and somebody ran a stop sign and hit her. Mm-hmm. She had shattered her hip and everything. So standing up and working became very difficult for her. She did come back and work for a few years in a laundry, but Hope now works in our business services again. So she's really seen a full evolution of our organization. And in 45 years, she now is old enough to retire, but she wants to come to work. And she does assembly and packaging for us in one of our businesses.
That's amazing. Just being able to have the opportunity for your employees to move across the different businesses if needed as well. Do they all operate separately as a business or as a non-profit? How does the operation run?
So we have for tax purposes, we are what's called a 501c3. So it's for charitable purposes. Nobody has an equity stake in the business.
Okay.
So it's owned by the community, basically. So we do have a talented financial staff. So each line of business really is managed as a sub-unit within our organization. So, for example, we run 7 group homes, but we treat that as residential services. So we do track each house and how much they spend on groceries and how much it costs for electricity and cable and some of these other things. But we treat that business as a separate business. So residential services is a separate business. At the end of the day, depending upon how we're counting, we have about 30 business lines from a financial standpoint.
And you've got one board that covers
we
all
do.
of that.
We do have one board. More recently, just in the last couple of years, we started a separate board, which is a foundation board. So the foundation board really is geared to doing nothing but work to develop the resources so that we can continue to expand and provide services. One of the critical needs for people with disabilities and their families, and Joey may understand this better than most, is that most children will outlive their parents. And when you have a child with a severe disability, one of your greatest issues is when I'm not there to help them and support them, what's their life going to be like? So, what we found is that just the startup costs for every residential slot is fairly significant. So the last home we did is for people that need total care. So every activity of daily living has to be helped with. So they live and they use wheelchairs. They have to have special hoists to get them out of bed in the morning, put in a wheelchair. All of their personal needs has to be done by staff. They have to be fed by staff, transported by staff. Very expensive program. So just to start that program up, it's such significant resources that that's part of what the challenge of our foundation board is to develop those resources so that we can begin to do a greater address those issues for families and people with disabilities, so that families will know that, hey, my child will do okay. Some families, they've already figured that out. Maybe the individual will go live with a brother, sister. Maybe they can live independently, but for some individuals, they're going to need oversight and support. And when the parents aren't there to provide it, there should be some comfort to the parents that my child is going to be okay, and that I feel comfortable with this organization doing an okay job. We're never going to do as good a job as the family.
Wow. Joey, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, you've got personal experience in this, in your family, but, it must be it's a big responsibility for the family, but also I think for Eggleston to take on that responsibility too, to make sure that the care is there, in, these residential services and stuff.
Yeah, a lot of families, it's a struggle just to get through the day. They're not worried about tomorrow. They're just looking at it very short-sighted, just day to day. And we can understand it from an intellectual standpoint, but it's a different understanding when it's an experiential understanding. And that, parents, if you have a child with a significant disability, and that child is 45 years old, a lot of us maybe have had children and maybe we got rid of them when they were 25 or 30 now. I don't know what the right age when you stop getting responsible for your kids. So that's not what you wanted to talk about, I know, but when you know that you're going to have that responsibility for the care of an individual, and that the horizon is that till the day you die or can't take care of that person, you're still going to be responsible for them. Emotionally, that is an overpowering weight on you.
Yeah, I'm sure. So I have a question that back when it all started and Mrs. Eggleston donated the building, and society has changed a lot, and you have experienced a lot of those changes. Mm-hmm. And you've been in Eggleston, I presume, in various roles, perhaps. What has been some of those changes in society, and how has Eggleston had to adapt to that?
Well, the biggest issue is I think society and businesses have come to the realization that employing somebody with a disability is a competitive advantage. So that is a shift that in my career I've seen. They've done studies, and those businesses that do in fact have a more proactive hiring practice where they reach out and engage somebody with a disability within their business, there's a greater feeling of the customer base, and it's a feel good that this company is doing the right thing and being responsible. So, at one point, schools did not allow children to come to school. That was a law in Virginia, in the United States, that wasn't enacted until 1975. So if many schools said, you can't send your kids to school till they're toilet trained. Well, guess what? Some kids are never going to be toilet trained. Many of the schools had stairs and second floors and no elevators. And if you presented your child to school and they used a wheelchair, the school could say, you can't send your child to this school, you can't come to school. So that law changed in 1975. So since 1975, it's been a progressive understanding and welcoming of people with disabilities as part of society. Disability is the human condition. Eventually, all of us, probably something going to wear out, whether it's our body or our mind or something is going to wear out. And, maybe we might view ourselves right now, I like to say I'm a tab. So a tab is somebody that's temporarily able-bodied. Eventually, it's not going to be that way. So, we do tend to label people with disabilities by their disability. So you say, well, that person has CP, or this, they use a lot of initials. So now you have an initial, you're a tab.
I'll have to remember.
That's fun.
So, I mean, you've got a foundation that is part of Eggleston, but it's also got its own focus.
That's right.
So with COVID that's happening now, and possibly permanent changes that are happening in the world, who's focusing on that? Who's focusing on the pivot that they're calling it to your operations, and where your future goals have to sort of change?
Well, I think this has really focused on who are essential personnel. And, again, we haven't laid off the first person.
Yeah.
We, had to make some modifications, but we tried to get out in front of that modification. And, we've had cases of COVID, but we've never had 2 cases of COVID at the same site. So the COVID really has been that some employee has picked it up at home or outside of work and presented at work, but they haven't shared it at work. So if you try to maintain good, safe practices, wear your mask, clean your hands, keep your distance, some common sense approaches, we're managing risk, and we're going to continue to manage risk, but there is at least, I think, a middle path between just saying it's too dangerous, we're going to completely shut down, and throw away the mask and let's share a beer. That's there's a middle ground there, and that's where we've tried to do is find that middle ground. And again, the people that we employ and engage in are on the margins of society. Many of them, they don't have the resources to fall back on to pay rent and do other things. They need their job. They're committed individuals. I mean, we've got so many stories of people when the buses don't run. We've had people walk 3 miles to get to work, leave early, and walk to work in the snow. And when they got here, their tennis shoes were so soaked, we had to take them off and throw them in the dryer to dry them out. That's the kind of commitment that we have with some of our employees. So hiring somebody with a disability, if you get a good match and it's the right match, is such an asset to a business.
So is that something that say we're talking here to like fellow business owners,
Sure.
And some of them are small business owners, how can they help? How can they get involved with Eggleston to employ some of your people? Like, what is the process?
Or how can Eggleston help them, it sounds like?
And
Exactly.
it goes both ways. So we have a whole division that is our community-based employment division, where we have what we call employment specialists. They go out and talk to a business. They assess a potential job. They might make some recommendations. At the end of the day, you say, we don't have the right person for you right now, but maybe later we will. Or they look and say, we think we might have a good match. Let's do some job shadowing, some practice, and our staff will be there to help train them on the job. So it's a train and then fade. And we'd love to, for the business to say, you know what, we don't need you anymore. We got it now. Leave us alone. This is just another one of our employees. And we've had those experiences. That's the ideal experience. But we are willing to continue to follow people and do job upgrades, help retrain, work on issues that might affect the person's performance outside of the work environment. So that's a big part of our business, is that effort. The other one is just a B2B support in using some of our business lines, whether that's our document construction, our document conversion, some of the businesses that we're involved in. It's a chance to, if the other businesses in the community don't support us and the community doesn't support us, we're not going to have work. If we don't have work, we're not going to employ people with disabilities. So the more we get supported, the more partnerships we develop, the more individuals we can provide services to. And the reality is, if you really just think of how many students every year in the Hampton Roads area graduate with a special education degree out of different school systems. A lot of them drop out, but those people that do leave with special education certificates, we're not growing by those kinds of numbers. Our growth is really small in many respects, unless we get a new contract or we acquire a new business line that we have to staff up. So we do have openings right now. We'll continue to have openings, but we're never going to meet the needs of just those numbers of students that graduate. And where they graduate to the couch. So they leave school, they graduate to the couch. Maybe if they are coming from a 2-parent family, maybe one of the parents has to stay home now, so they have to quit their job to stay home to provide oversight and support to their family member. If they come from one parent household, maybe they have to quit their job. So just that whole economic, the economic evaluation of providing more programs and services like what Eggleston provides, there's a whole ripple effect to that.
Definitely. Well, it seems to be about our time. Kylie, do you have anything else you want to ask?
There's a lot more that I want to ask, but I know that we do have time limits. But no, is there anything, Paul, that you'd like to add before we sign off?
Well, I just, I think as you were mentioning, the whole how people with disabilities are treated in society is changing, and that most individuals get a lot out of that interaction. You might think that the coworkers would feel bad about bringing in a coworker with a significant disability. It's in fact the exact opposite. The coworkers and the business community can be viewed in a much more positive light by bringing in somebody that needs some help, needs some supports, needs some training. The business profits from that.
Great. I just have one final question.
Sure.
Go for it.
As the CEO of an organization, what is one valuable lesson that you'd like to share with fellow business leaders?
I think, it's not me, it's all of us. And, it's not important to take credit for what happens as long as it happens. That's the important thing. So, the idea of we don't do enough to show appreciation for the people that are doing the hard work on a daily basis. And, showing that appreciation, I think at the end of the day, what you should be concerned about is the results, not about who gets credit for the results.
Well said. All right. Well, thank you, Paul, so much for joining us. That was a great episode of the Retailers Podcast. And I hope you have a great day.
Thank you, Joey. Thank you. Good talking.